Ahoy! I am the Dancing King! I didn't see you there. You should really knock, you know. I have half a mind to call my lawyers and. Am I still wearing the crown? I am. Okay. So last few videos have all been sci-fi themed, and most of them will continue to be. But for this particular video, I wanted to talk about some regular fiction books that I like. I'll start with my favorite, White Fang by Jack London, which I remember reading in 4th grade for accelerated reader. I don't know if they still have that in school, but basically you would pick a pre-selected book and read it and take quizzes on it to get points, and it was like basically a class of its own. But White Fang, not the type of book I usually like. It's the only one I've read by Jack London. Probably the only one I ever will read. Mostly because it's set in like, I don't know, 1800s, early 1900s colonial America, which I find to be one of the most boring settings there could be. But I actually really like it in this one. He's kind of overly descriptive about like emotions and scents and thoughts and stuff sometimes. But I don't know, I really like his whole bleak kind of survival of the fittest. It's a very grim, dark world, but it's centered around a wolf. Well, 3/4 wolf, 1/4 dog, and he has a very kind of hard life. Um, and it transitions a few times here and there from different places and kind of switches hands of masters and kind of very distrustful of people and other animals, and as well as he should be. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it is a really good book, and I like the ending, even though the whole book is pretty dark and kind of depressing at times. There's another book by Jack London called Call of the Wild, which I guess seems to be centered around wolves too. If any, if there's any other Jack London book I would ever read, it'd probably be that one. I might give it a shot in the future. But White Fang, school library that I used to read this at had like an unabridged version, and it was like 450 pages. This one's only 250, and for the life of me, I can't find it. But I remember it had the exact same cover as this, so it must have been published by Scholastic. So if anybody knows where to find it, I've looked on everywhere online and bookstores like Barnes and Noble and even like smaller used bookstores. I can't find it. So if anyone knows where to find the unabridged version of White Fang, let me know. Maybe I can pay you for it if you have it on PayPal or something like that. Before I forget, still on the subject of White Fang, there's plenty of movies. I've only seen the 2 Disney ones, and I only care to see the 2 Disney ones. But if you look on Amazon, there'll be a bunch of other ones listed that look like kind of old documentary footage of wolves, basically. I don't know. So there's a couple animated ones. But I have the Disney ones. The first one stars Ethan Hawke. There's elements of the book and the story from the book, but then it kind of goes off on its own for a lot of parts. I don't know. It's all in all, I'd say it's probably about 70% accurate to the book, or maybe 60. It's kind of hard to say, but the things they did change and kind of went off on their own thing for, I guess I understand because it makes it a little bit more kid-friendly and family-friendly, a lot less depressing, and it's just easier storytelling than, telling a story in a book is very different than telling a story like visually and with characters and stuff. So I guess I understand it. It's okay. It's not spectacular, but it's okay. And the second one, they kind of just, it's a different actor because it's a different character that has White Fang. Kind of just made up their own story for it to go along to add on to the first one. Not great. Not really a huge fan of it, but I own them just for the heck of it. As far as dog and wolf movies, I think you're better off with Balto or Eight Below. Those are probably the best dog wolf movies. But like I said, the first one, pretty decent. This next book I got for free. There's a clubhouse in the subdivision where I live where people just drop off books that they don't want anymore, and other people are free to take them. This was the only one I found there that looked remotely interesting to me because they didn't have any sci-fi. It's called Creepers, and I'm not familiar with the author, but I want to say that's pronounced Morrell, David Morrell. Could be David Morrell or something like that, though. I didn't even realize till after I started reading it, but on the inside cover it shows all the other books he had written up until this point. And in the 70s and 80s, he's the one that wrote the Rambo books that the movies ended up being based off of, which is kind of cool. But this one's centered around abandoned areas and like a whole subculture of people, usually referred to in slang as creepers, that explore those abandoned areas and just to see what they can discover. and just because it's something thrilling to do, I guess. But it's centered around one particular abandoned area. It's a fictional place, I'm pretty sure. It has a whole crazy history behind it. And then the characters know a little bit about it, but once they get there and get inside it and start exploring it, they end up realizing things are even crazier than they could have expected. And there's a lot of twists and turns and excitement. It's really good. I'd probably give it like 4 stars out of 5 if I had to rate it. Not my favorite book, but it's definitely worth reading if you want to kill some time. I like it. But yeah, David Morrell, Creepers. And the title even ends up kind of being like a double or even sort of a triple meaning. The title is very applicable. It definitely applies to a lot of situations in this book. These next 3 books are all by the same author, Jeffrey Deaver, who, from what I understand, is pretty popular with the whole criminology serial killer type genre. But The Blue Nowhere, how I got into this is somebody left this book on top of our break room fridge at work, and I was really bored one night and decided to give it a chance. It took me 2 or 3 nights to read it, but I was thoroughly enthralled. I like the cover, look how shiny that is. Basically, it's centered around hacking, like 90s hacking, and I guess the author did a lot of research to try to make sure he was as accurate as possible. But the main character, at least the protagonist, is a hacker that got in trouble for, I think, hacking into the Pentagon or something like that. And then some special police agency ends up recruiting him because they need help tracking down a serial killer who's also a big-time hacker and uses hacking to interfere with people's lives and retrieve information about them and figure out plans of how to kill them, basically. And it's very entertaining. I really like the way Jeffrey Deaver alternates between the protagonist and the antagonist. Like, some chapters will be centered around the serial killers and their crazy, different, out there thoughts, without giving too much away, spoiler-wise. So yeah, Jeffrey Deaver's like a master of the serial killer genre. This one, The Bone Collector, I don't have the movie to go with it, but in the late 90s there was a Denzel Washington, Angelina Jolie movie based off of this book. I think the book's better. The movie did most of it the same, but it changed a couple things, and I think the way it played out in the book was a lot better than the way it played out in the movie, but the movie's still pretty decent. Basically, this one is centered around a guy who's not a hacker like in Blue Nowhere. This guy is more, he's kind of obsessed with old historical sites and things like that, but it makes for some really interesting settings for some big showdowns between cops and criminals, and he leaves a lot of like puzzles basically for the cops that are chasing him to come after. This is one of the Lincoln Rhyme books. Lincoln Rhyme is a character that I guess a lot of Deaver's books involve, where he's paraplegic, but he used to be like the top criminologist in his field, and he really is now. He has special equipment and like an assistant that help him, but he does like high-tech criminology stuff when it comes to like analyzing DNA, and he's incredibly smart. He's like a genius. But the Lincoln Rhyme books are really good. This is only one of 2 that I have, but I recommend it. Third and final Deaver book that I've read so far. I definitely will read more by him at some point in the future, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm mostly into sci-fi. The Coffin Dancer. This is probably my favorite of the 3. It's another Lincoln Rhyme one. This was the first Lincoln Rhyme one I read. But look at that holographic little. What this is, basically, you end up finding out, is kind of cool. Like, this logo isn't just here for anything. But the Coffin Dancer is a very mysterious serial killer that Lincoln Rhyme has been chasing, apparently, for like most of his career. And he's personally hurt Lincoln Rhyme in a couple different ways. But he's basically so mysterious, he has really no idea who this person is, but he does seem to have the same, I guess, MO every single time he kills someone. But it has a lot of twists and turns in here. All of them I thoroughly enjoy. Parts of it involve some pretty epic, like, plane stuff. I won't say too much, but there's one of the characters in the book owns like a kind of a small-time air transportation type thing with the where they ship goods with planes. But it's exciting like throughout the whole entire book, and I don't think you'll ever see the ending coming. But yeah, so that's my Jeffrey Deaver book so far, and those 5 books are pretty much the only books I own that aren't sci-fi. So thank you for watching.